14 degrees, they say, yet clouds remain in a sky so gray. Dark is the forest, shaded by trees huddling close. Even the tiniest of shrubs nestle together on a morning so bitter cold. Squirrels and frogs secretly hidden inside the center of the warm old oak. No fog, no sleeping steam normally seen draping over nearby houses. The new sun could be embarrassed to rise over the horizon, the poet said to himself while trying to write, each written word being that of a self-created, thoughtful excuse. Even the sun might be cold at 14 degrees. It's possible ice crystals have covered the entrance, making it quite difficult to begin a new day. It was quite amazing to watch the poet deliver his words, not onto a piece of paper, but out into a forest that seemed so cold. What are we going to do? The poet shouted out in hopes the waking forest would lend a helping branch. Without the sun, things can't grow. It's hard to see, and the temperature might drop to 13. The forest of trees and shrubs and warm old oak with squirrels and frogs secretly hidden inside his tummy only stared down at the poet, not a frown, not a smile, only tree eyes that seemed to read, "Can't you see? It is not 13, it is 14 degrees. Shaking and shivering, hugging and holding, the trees and shrubs and warm old oak with squirrels and frogs hidden inside his tummy decided to look away. But, the poet said while forcefully trying to interrupt, if there is no sun, how will I know when it is time to eat? 12 o'clock lunch, 5 o'clock dinner? Mr. Poet, the warm old oak with squirrels and frogs secretly hidden inside his tummy loudly blasted. It was so loud, so filled with thunder, 2 leaves left over from fall leaped toward the frozen ground. Only you would think of reasons such as this. The sun will rise. No tree or shrub in this forest is worried. The sun, it is never late. Maybe you are too early. At that very moment, the poet's tired eyes caught glimpse of a shade of pink, not gray, a tiny white cloud ice skating across the morning breeze. Then a bird flying from one tree to another. The excitement was building. The new sun was set to rise, even on a 14-degree day. Clouds, where have you been? The poet sharply questioned, his hands raised high into the frozen air. Have you been stalled by the weather? Is the new sun soon to rise with you? Oh, how the poet was filled with so many questions. Looking out across the horizon through several miles of orange, blue, and pink, the white clouds did not take notice. They were much too busy ice skating across the morning breeze. Then again, there was an exception. That little white cloud. The one who loved to smile. Very friendly.
Good morning, Mr. Poet.
The tiny white cloud gleefully sprang out, his words landing on the poet's trembling fingertips.
Good morning.
Quickly, the poet turned to the forest of trees and shrubs and the warm old oak with squirrels and frogs secretly hidden inside his tummy. The very forest who never once seemed too concerned. Their waking faces were that of, "I told you so." But that didn't stop the poet from grinning, giving back to the little white cloud the very smile he shared with him. "Good morning." Then suddenly, without warning or hesitation, the orange, blue, and pink clouds turned gray. Darkness had fallen face first onto the forest below. So shocking was the moment, the warm old oak with squirrels and frogs secretly hidden inside his tummy stood up and took notice. "The parade," the poet harshly questioned. "The colors, all lined in a row with the sun to soon follow. Where's the parade?" The 14-degree morning had now cooled off to 13. No. 12, 11, 10. So cold the squirrels and frogs secretly hidden inside the warm old oak had to retrieve handmade wool blankets. The forest of trees and shrubs could be heard grumbling, their clay-covered roots starting to shiver. Never before had anything like this ever happened. Could there really be ice covering the new sun's grand entrance? "Hey, you!" the poet screamed toward the gray sky as the tiny white cloud continued to skate by. "What has happened to our parade? Rows of orange, blue, and pink with the sun waiting to follow." The tiny white, once friendly cloud tried to sneak by without making a sound. Then without notice he stopped, for the forest had started to frown. After all, it was 10 degrees, falling quickly to 9, maybe 8. What would happen if the morning was introduced to 7 or even 6.
Okay.
The tiny, once friendly white cloud responded, sliding his ice skates sideways, sending slivers of ice forward, completely covering the warm old oak with squirrels and frogs secretly hidden inside his tummy.
I can't skate any farther because the truth needs to be known. This parade of colors, orange, blue, and pink, with the sun that follows, well, it ain't going to happen.
What? Shrieks of terror rang through the fully wakened forest, rumbles so loud and so cold, the temperature had now fallen to 5 on its way to 4.
How could this be?
The cold old oak with squirrels and frogs secretly hidden inside his tummy demanded to know, ice crystals now forming over his tree eyelids.
The squirrels and frogs depend on me. I'm cold. I can't let down my friends.
Scraping the built-up ice from his skates onto a nearby hill, the tiny, once friendly white cloud didn't find any of this to be fascinating. It looked as if he, too, was quite disappointed. After all, he was leading the parade of orange, blue, and pink with a sun that would follow.
The sun? It didn't take ice skating lessons.
The tiny, now friendly white cloud tried to explain as the temperature dropped to only 3.
He kept saying that he didn't need ice skating lessons, but as you can tell, he has fallen and broken his rays.
What?
Shrieks of terror rang through the forest below twice in one morning. This must have been a new record, except this time there were no rumbles. It was only 2 degrees, much too cold to rumble.
You must return to the horizon where you came from.
The once warm, now cold old oak ordered the now friendly tiny white cloud.
Be a true friend. Return to the horizon and pick up the sun who has fallen. Anyone who skates across the ice so thin knows how difficult it can be, especially since it's only 1 degree.
His clay-covered roots shaking, the forest of trees and shrubs adding their chilled support, the once warm, now cold old oak stood staring at the friendly tiny white cloud, not begging, but forcefully ordering him to return to the gray horizon. It was there the new sun sat with broken rays. The sleepy frozen wind lent a helping blow, spinning round and round the tiny white cloud, then directed him toward the gray horizon.
Hurry!
One of the squirrels unpleasantly shouted from a hole in the once warm, now cold old oak.
I can't afford to miss Barney and Teletubbies.
Quiet down, squirrel.
The once warm, now cold old oak interrupted.
Now is not the time to play, for the temperature is only 0.
What do you think will happen? The poet calmly asked, shaking and shimmering in hopes of hearing an answer. There was only silence, like that heard in the middle of the night. 0 degrees, no birds flying by. 0 degrees, and the squirrel was worried about Barney and the Teletubbies. 0 degrees. Oops, I'm told it's now 1 below.
Come on, cloud.
The once warm, now cold old oak commanded, his breath creating icicles that flew only for a moment, then crashed onto the frozen forest floor. I'm cold. The words bounced from the chilled poet's frozen lips. He knew that it was time to return to the nice warm indoors. But how? Why? His friends in the forest were just as cold. Is there room inside of you, Mr. Oak? The poet politely asked. I want to crawl inside next to the squirrel and frog. At that very second, the once warm, now cold old oak shot to life, his eyes a brilliant white, his toes sinking deeper into the clay. He was so excited.
The frog!
The once warm, now cold old oak exclaimed.
The frog must go to the gray horizon immediately. How could I have expected a friendly cloud to lift a sun with broken rays? The frog can get below the sun and leap. That's right, leap and leap and leap across the ice. What?
Shrieks of terror rang through the forest of trees and shrubs, a third such shrieking during the same morning. This for sure had to be a brand new record.
The poet!
The once warm, now cold old oak continued to command.
The poet must take his writing pen and make it warm again. You are to write about summer, write about the blistering heat, the humidity. The summer, Mr. Poet, the summer. Make it warm before we all freeze.
The poet quickly rushed toward his blue and white house, 25 steps leading to his back door. Finally, a chance to make true friends with the forest he spent every morning watching. Time. It stood still, yet everyone knew it couldn't be. It felt like forever as the poet reached for his writing pen to write something, anything, just to make it warm again. As I sat, the words were scribbled onto a blank sheet of paper. As I sat, the poet continued to write. No. As I melted into a lounge chair, bugs from everywhere greeted me with unfriendly smiles. The horribly hot, blistering morning would soon become afternoon. The sound of running water from sprinklers sprinkling the blooming azaleas below. Quickly turning to face the very quiet forest, the poet could see the once warm, now cold old oak. His lips slowly whispered,
Right, Mr. Poet. Right.
So the poet did, as quickly as he could. He wrote about willows and cattails, fireflies and turtles, kids and their dogs, lawnmowers and tractors in open fields. He wrote about chocolate ice cream. He wrote about cherry snow cones. The poet wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote until a drop of sweat fell from his forehead onto the sheet of white paper below. It was at that meeting, the meeting between ink and sweat, that something very special started to grow. The rays of a new sun as the temperature reached 3 below.
The frog did it!
The poet exploded into laughter, fun, and celebration.
He was able to wake up and jump and jump and jump over to a friend to help lift and lift and lift a friend up, exposing rows and rows of colors, orange, blue, and pink, with a sun that followed.
There it was, the beginning of a brand new morning. The once cold, now warm old oak cheered so loud, he woke the squirrels who laid there snoring.
Me, you stop it!
The sleepy-eyed squirrel tossed out his orders.
I need my rest. I can't afford to miss Barney and Teletubbies.
Turning to the poets, a smile tucked inside for such an occasion, the now warm, once cold old oak could be seen whispering, "Thank you, Mr. Poet. Thank you." The poet felt so proud, so happy, so filled with cheer. Then, from nowhere, his ears were filled with something else to hear.
Ribbit. Ribbit.
The once sleeping frog let out.
Ribbit.
During all the happiness, during all the cheers, shouts, and tears, the poet found it in his heart to look into the colorful sky and thank the frog. There he was, green and quite cold. That didn't bother him, for he was on the move. 2 pair of ice skates wrapped around his short little legs, a pair for the front, another for the back, and a smile so large, even the warm, once cold old oak couldn't help but laugh.
You go, Mr. Frog.
The poet cheered out loud.
You go.
And go the frog did, past 12 o'clock, all the way up to 5. You know, dinner time.